Hey there, everyone. This is Chris McDonald. Today, we're going to be focusing on race day scoring, specifically for triathlon and multi-sport events. Matt and I've got Matt Avery on the back end answering questions. So for those of you that aren't familiar, you can ask questions. Matt will be there answering them. And if multiple of you ask the same question, then we'll kind of pause and go through that specific question. So we noticed a lot of familiar faces on the attendee list. So hopefully you guys have already been timing some triathlon events and multi-sport events, and this will be a review. So we've done this presentation previously, so I'm going to go a little bit quicker than normal through it. And then I have a sample event or not even a sample, it's a real event that was timed, and I'm going to go through that setup and just review that with you. So yeah. Now, I will say, as a timer, normally we're just, throwing down mats, helping with participant data, etc. One thing that I always suggest when we start moving into the triathlon world, and that is when you get a reach out from an event, or if it's an event that you've been working with for many, many years, put yourself a reminder on your calendar that to touch base with the event just before they open registration, to make sure that they are putting in their USA Triathlon sanctioning identification number into the reg platform side. Now, granted, I realize that as a timer, you can't really do that for them if you only have timer level access. However, it is something that that you can remind them to do, and then help walk them through it if they don't know how to. It makes their life a lot easier. It might not affect you that much, but it's just a really, really nice touch as a timer, just to keep that in the back of your head that that it is something they need to set up. So with that being said, we're going to talk about the anatomy of a course, start time options, relay teams, and then top finisher categories. Now, we're not going to go through soup to nuts on how to set up race day scoring. This is a little bit more of an advanced session. So the assumption here is that you're timing 5Ks and 10Ks. You understand how that works. You understand how to make a bib chip file and load that in. For those of you that have only been using passive tags with one-to-one tags, and you now have reusable chips for multi-sport, that is something to remember, that you will need to create a bib chip file. So again, we're gonna move through these fairly quickly. So on the course side, race day scoring is very flexible, and it allows for a lot of different setups. You'll need to understand how to configure a standard multi-sport event before you get into the super complicated ones, but we'll kind of walk through those. So streams and timing locations are something that we continuously have people confused about. So a lot of times for the stream side, especially triathlons, it's a single reader, and it's a starting point for us to understand the rest of the setup. Each chip system has a different setup. And again, for those of you that you're new to the game, this is maybe a little bit more complicated than your normal 5K setup, where maybe it's a gun start and you just have a finish line. Because at a normal triathlon, you might have a gun start, but you're going to have, theoretically, you're going to have a minimum of, I guess you could do everything with one decoder, but most of you are going out there with 3+ systems. And so in this scenario, you have a transition where you have a main and backup for bike in and bike out, and a main and backup for run in and run out, or swim, finish, run, start. So just keep in mind that all of you are going to have different setups, but so the number of streams may be very different, but the number of timing locations might be more similar. So again, we just talked about streams. So the timing locations might be bike in, bike out, and run in, run out, or if you think about it, this is maybe for duathlon, but swim in, run out, where you're bringing those streams in, and you're using finish split times in the setup. You're not going to consider anything until after 8:30 because there's an 8 o'clock start. And a lot of times you're only in transition for, in some cases, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. A lot of times the T1 is a little bit longer just because they're disoriented. So you can set that those times to be a little bit different, but you will want to make sure you group your streams correctly for the same physical area in those timing locations. Filter out any reads. So I make sure that I use time filters quite religiously for triathlons, and then making sure you're filtering the reads to the best read based on the timing location. So start, in case you don't know this, anytime you set something to a start location, it's going to take the first read, no matter, or sorry, the last scene, no matter what. And anytime it's a finish or split location, it's going to be first scene. So those are automatic best read for that specific timing location. And so for finish split types, multiple occurrences can happen for each participant, and you set that in the timing location. So segments, this is somewhere that a lot of people use segments for the first time. And whenever I do training on how to set up segments, I actually use triathlon as a starting point. Why? Because I think it's a lot easier to conceptualize rather than, segments on a marathon course, because you're not talking about distances, you're talking about disciplines. And so segments are elapsed times between two reads at a given timing location occurrence. So a segment could be in between a gun start and occurrence 1 somewhere. It could be from occurrence 2 at a decoder to occurrence 3 at that same decoder. It could be at occurrence 4 at a specific place and occurrence 1 at the next place. So all events, when you create them, have a default entire race segment, but you can create as many additional segments as you like. It's not required that you create them. So like if you're hired to just do an overall time at a triathlon, you're gonna have a gun time and you're gonna have a finish line, and there are no segments. So just keep that in mind. You're not required to set up swim T1, bike T2, run split, if you're not putting out those split points. So yeah, we'll go through that setup. Now this is a race this is actually a transition area from one of my events from years and years ago. This was a pool swim. So we had 3 timing locations. We actually had 4. We had another one here in the pool, but for the sake of this example, to keep things a little bit simpler, we had 3, and one loop was set up here, one loop was set up here, and one loop was set at the finish line. So the athletes would start, and then once they finish their swim, we would know what their start time was. That could either be by they start at an interval that we know what it is, and then they cross this mat. So I usually call this mat the swim, finish, run, start mat. Some people will call it like T1 mat or something like that. So it's kind of dependent on what your nomenclature is. But so occurrence 1 at this mat would be your swim time. And then they run into their TA, get their bike, and they run out of transition, mount their bike, and go out on the bike course. So from occurrence 1 here to occurrence 1 here is their T1 time. So again, swim 1, occurrence 1 to bike start, occurrence 1, that's their T1 time. Now, when you're setting this up, and we'll go over this, but it's a really good practice to set the pace to do not display for transitions, and the distance for a transition to be set to 0. So just something to consider when you're setting up for your triathlon. And then the bike. So the bike here is from bike start to bike start finish, occurrence 1 to occurrence 2. So when they hit it first, is their bike time starts, and when they come back and they hit it a second time, their bike time finishes. Now, some of you said, well, what if they forgot their bib or something like that and they go back into transition? So that's fine. You can set a gap factor for occurrences to be a set time. So this specific course was, I believe, a 20K bike, so around a 12.5 mile, 12.4 mile bike. So that I know that, nobody, I think our fastest time might have been like 28 minutes on a bike ever for this sprint triathlon. So I would set my gap factor here to like 25 minutes or 26 minutes. And that way, if somebody runs in and out and back out again, it never meets that gap factor. So it would consider that final time out as starting the bike. So that's how it would work. And then they would go back and, go across the mat, and you would have your bike time. Now, once they cross it, your time within transition is going to be pretty short. And so again, it might be 20, 30 seconds before they go on run start. And then, so their second occurrence, from occurrence 2 to occurrence 2, is their transition to time. And then their run starts at occurrence 2 here. Now, this mat did not go all the way across, so it did stop right here. So they go out and around and out to the bike course, and then they came, on the run course, and then they ran back. So the run was from occurrence 2 here to their finish at the finish line here. And that is how on average, a lot of triathlons are set up. So these in-outs could be different. I've had a situation where the transition area is back in a corner and they only had one mat. There was no entrance exit here. So everybody they came in and out for all disciplines right here. So in that scenario, you're gonna have 4 occurrences and your gap factors are gonna be set to like, very awkward times, like 30 seconds, 20 minutes, 30 seconds, or something like that in between your reads, to make sure you account for those transition times. So these can all be set up very, very differently, but it's just something to consider when you are setting this up. And this is what it would look like when you set things up. So you have your entire race. This is auto created. And then as you generate additional segments, those come in and they are stacked. So if you add all of these distances together, 2.5, 0, 11.4, 0, and 3.1, you end up with 17 miles. And then the nice thing about this is if you've got your triathlon set up and you've got relays, I think I have a slide for this, you can copy the segments over to the relay. So it's a nice little helpful tool there. So as you open this up, you can see how this is set up. Now, obviously this swim is a bit long for our normal setup, but your starting point might be, for the swim, it might be gun start, it might be whatever location you have set up for this. Just to keep in mind, the segment distance and cumulative distance for your first segment are going to be equivalent. After that, your segment distance is the distance they travel, and your cumulative distance is the summation of all that distance plus all previous distances. So, and this copy segments is what I was saying about copying the triathlon from the triathlon event to the triathlon relay event. You can hit paste and then save, and it's a really nice feature to help scale quickly. So the other thing that you run into is you have multiple different ways of starting these events. So you have options to do it by scored event. So by scored event might be if you have like a triathlon and a triathlon relay. So all the people in the tri start together and all the people in the relay start, 3 minutes later. Or by Corral, and this might be by age group or division or something like that. Some people do by Corral they'll export everybody out and assign the corrals and then import people back into the corrals to make things, because they have like super custom ways they want to do it, which is perfectly fine. And then the final way, and a lot of pool swims, and actually post-COVID, a lot of open events, like open water events, are actually doing this too. And that is start times by chip. And so it's just like a chip time event. And so it's kind of a big shift in the industry since 2020, that a lot of open water events are going to chip time start options. So by scored event, this you've seen because you've probably done a 5K and a 10K, and this is where you have your actual start times are separated. You can still have your chip time set, but participants who are in a specific scored event will get this if there's no corrals. So if they have a corral assigned, it's going to use the corral start time instead of the scored event start time. So keep that in mind. So again, going back to it though, if you do have corrals set, and you can have corral 1 is for wave 1, corral 2 is for wave 2, you can set those start times individually. And you can auto assign these by a bunch of different factors. You can help auto assign, or you can help assign these within RunSignup as well. So there's a bunch of different ways to get people into corrals, but once you get them into the corrals, actually setting the start times you can do in the corral feature. And you can also do this on the set start times. So this is that auto assignment, and once you're playing in the auto assignment, you can say, you want the scored event of age group athletes. Now, if you're, and you can set those age group athletes specifically to, males 0 to 39. So again, it's however you want to set it. Now, that you keep in mind that a lot of triathlons don't use, collegiate age group, Clydesdale, Athena as scored events. They're doing it instead as like maybe a custom question or something like that. So if it's a custom question, you can put in additional filters and go down that path. And then once you click on the auto assignment or corral members, you can actually see who is in that corral. And if you click into a specific person, you can see what corral they're in. You can also import those corral assignments as you see fit. So and then chip time, we'll go into a second. Go over that here in a second. So setting the event corral start times, again, you can do that on the corral page, or you can click set start times here on the homepage, and you can click on the specific corral and manually set to a fixed start time, or if there are countdowns going on right now, you can click on corral 1 and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom, start now. Most of the time, you're the one helping start the event, and you're making note, whether it be a marker file or something like that, or you're just making note, maybe texting one of your staffers so you have a documentation of what wave started when. So they manually start. You can manually start them later by a fixed time. So you just click on the corral, type in the fixed time, and click start from fixed time, and then go to the next one. So if you're scoring by chip, your starting location. Now this is if your start finish is in the same location, but so your start finish would be in the same place. Your currents would be 2, but if you have a separate start location, you might have your start location be called start, finish location be called finish, and what time should be used for scoring results? Chip time. Now, another thing to remember, and we have people message us all the time, like, hey, I'm doing a video at the finish line. I can't get it to work. For some reason, it's not syncing up correctly. Well, if you're using chip time, this is not just for multisport. This is just a note for any timing in RaceDay scoring. If you exclude clock time, So like clock time doesn't actually have a purpose in a chip start triathlon because it's a time trial start. Everybody's starting at different times. But if you exclude the clock time when generating the default reports, and you exclude the clock time when pushing the overall report up to RunSignup, the sync with the YouTube channel is not going to work. You can hide it once you publish it, but you have to publish that clock time because that's how it all syncs up. So just something to remember. But if you're doing chip time, you don't have to fill any of this other stuff out for actual start time, and you'll be using chip time for all scoring features. And you'll be able to see in the segments what you're actually using for your segment, for your first segment start time and your entire race start time. So relay teams are another thing that's a little bit different with triathlons. So you do want to make sure relays are set up at RunSignup, and that it's not just like an additional event and teams aren't set up, because that's going to make things a little bit more difficult. So there should be a relay option here, and there does need to be a separate registration. So once you go in, you can have different group types like male, female, co-ed, and those need to be selected for the event type. So within that registration, you need to have multiple. You can have as many as you want to in terms of group types, and you can make reports for each one of those group types. So again, if you only have timer level access, then you'll need to just make sure that you'll want to double check with whoever's in charge of setting things up with the event, that this is set up correctly so you can pull it into RaceDay scoring appropriately. On your end, what you want to do is within the event, so this is one of those scored events. So we have our relay, and then we have our sprint triathlon, then we have our sprint tri relay. On the sprint tri relay, you'll go in and you'll click team scoring. And so this pops up. Default scoring, your scoring type is a relay, and team members will have a common bib number. So this is where on the RunSignup side, we're using group bibs. And you can set that at RunSignup, you can import those in, and when you can even dynamically assign group bibs within the check-in app. It is a little bit different setup in the check-in app. So if you've got relays like in a triathlon, you do need to have a secondary setting within your configuration for relays. So again, just something to consider when you're setting this up. So as soon as you click that and you hit save on this, it's going to ask you if you want to update everything, and you're going to say yes. So it's going to by default create a single event report for all these. You can edit these and create separate sections or separate reports, however you want to do it for each relay type. So that's how you would set it up within the reports tab. And so if you did have separate reports, you can now see you have separate reports for the co-ed, female, and male relay. And a lot of times what I'll do, hopefully on my example, I set this up correctly. I'm pretty sure I did, but we'll double check when we're in there. And if I didn't, I'll update it so it is correct. So top finisher categories. Tries have a lot of weird categories. And when I say weird, I mean like you're rarely going to a running event and having to deal with Clydesdales, Athenas, novices, collegiates, opens, elites, things like that. So now some of you might, and some of you might have, like military divisions in your running events or first responder, and so you're used to this. But for those of you that aren't, there's a really neat trick within RaceDay scoring to handle top finisher categories. Now, this is usually set with custom questions. Now, you don't want to have these set by checkbox. It's not going to work correctly. So a select menu is what you're going for. And this is a very, very normal custom question. And so you've got your age group, Athena, Clydesdale, Fat Tire, Open Elite, and PC. And so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll also default the age group to be the default answer, and we'll make sure we require a response, and we'll ask each registrant. Now, this would be a question that I would only ask people in the regular triathlon. I would not ask relay members this. So just below where it says events, I would only select the tri, and I wouldn't select the relay. You also have the ability to put a lot of other question responses in here. And so when you're setting things up, once you sync it for the first time, it's going to pull all this information in. And these last two, the USAT membership and membership ID number, are really helpful for post-race reports that you generate and send on to the race owner to be submitted to USAT for national rankings. So for the overall report, so this is your overall banding that you see. So this event is overboard, but it's a great representation of everything. So band 1 was their open elite, and then tri overall, and then their masters, and then Athena 30 and under, and then Masters Athena, Clydesdale, Masters Clydesdale, Fat Tire, and PC. So within this setup, a lot of times they'll put, include 99 males, which usually encompasses all of these people. And then they'll put in a description, which is what shows up here and what shows up at RunSignup. The starting age is 1, the priority is 40. Again, so the priority, this priority might be 40, this priority might be 41. So this one is going to take priority over this one. And then you say race category is equal to Clydesdale. So this was that custom question, race category, and they chose Clydesdale here. So race category equals Clydesdale, and age is less than or equal to 39. All right, so that's really important. And so you see how this filters out with Clydesdale 40 and up, and but these first few people, no matter what, they're gonna push up to the top. So age group report and best practices. It's common to only show the award winners instead of all finishers in the age group for tries, and remove the splits. So this is where within this, you're gonna put, how many sprint triathlon overall winners. You're only gonna have 3 or 5 or whatever you do, 1 maybe. But in the age range, you're gonna set this as 5-year age groups normally, number of winners to be 3. And you're gonna add the age ranges. So this is what's gonna build out. Now, once you do that, you go into your age group report. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll rename it to Triathlon Awards Report. And I'll edit it, and I'll delete out the splits from the awards report. And I'll also click this show award winners only. And a lot of times I will not group age groups by gender, because a lot of my races like to, instead of going through all females, they like to go male, female when reading out the awards. Now, again, this is only for the age group. I do not do this for overall, because if you do this, what we're showing you right here for the overall report, you're not going to push any splits up to RunSignup or show any splits at any point. So I am going to exit out of here. Oh, just as a reminder on the help guides, all these help guides are available. I'll pause for 1 second actually and see if are there any questions, Matt, that I should jump on?
So there's just one that I'm responding now from Duncan that I can just speak up about. So he's asking, can you have Corral's and start and SWIP mat times in the overall race, but define Corral for scored event X and chip time for scored events YZ? And I think if you're asking, can you have one event use Corral starts and another event use chip starts? Yeah, you can definitely do that. On the scored event itself, you can say you want to rank by chip time or you want to rank by clock time, and then you can set up your Corrals such that only people in one event are assigned to a corral, and the other event they are not assigned to a corral. So that should work for you just fine.
Cool.
Other than that, nope, nothing else.
All right, well, if that's the case, then I'm going to jump in, and this is a real event, so we're not going to change too much unless I screwed something up that I found from last year. So the reason why we're doing this multi-sport review right now is because for most of you, I saw Fred Summers on here. He might have down in Florida, and Steve Teresi, they might have been already doing some tries down in southern Florida, but for the rest of us in the world, tri-season usually turns on either last weekend or this weekend. So we just wanted to do a quick review for everybody. So that being said, this is what our dashboard is normally looking like. So for this specific event, we had it set up. You can see my location. I'll just kind of mosey down through. So just like it showed in the example, please select your division. What's your 100-meter swim time? Are you the swimmer on the relay? Why are these in here? What's your meter pace time? So why is this question here twice? Well, the question's in here twice because if they're in a relay, we ask a piped or a question logic question that says, are you the swimmer? If they answer yes, then they get this question, what's your 100-meter pace time? Why is that? We do that because we seed people fastest to slowest. And that's how it all works on our end. Now, the way we handle this, like internally, is I pull down and sort everyone by their pace, and I do collegiates, then I do everybody else except for novices, and I do novices at the end. So relays are actually seated within the normal groupings. Then we have our e-contact, e-phone, and then membership number. The reason why we have doubles of these, again, are relays. So you see all of our participants in here. You can see there's individuals and then there's relays. We didn't have tons of relays. And so, but if we go into relays, you see there's no bibs and chips, but if we click on teams, magically, now we can see the group bib number and group chip number. And if we click into each one of these, we can see the participants on that relay team. So a lot of people, when they're messing around, they forget that there's this teams tab, and this is where they are. So we only had one team type. We only had the super sprint relay for this event. And so if you have like a club type team or something like that, it might be in there. So if we click on teams and we click on individuals, it's going to be blank. So if we click on the relay or all events, we'll have all of our teams. So streams, we had a handful of streams. We had 4 streams for this, and we had 4 locations. So the locations, this was a pool swim. So we had a swim start, we had swim finish, run start. So that's one side of TA with 2 occurrences, you see. Bike start, bike finish, again, 2 occurrences, and then the finish, again, 1 occurrence. So they're gonna start here, and you get the picture in terms of they finish their swim, occurrence 1. Go out on the bike, occurrence 1. They come back on the bike, occurrence 2. They go out on the run, occurrence 2. They finish, occurrence 1. So when we go into our settings, we say consider start times until 8 o'clock. I think this race started at 7. I think we usually put additional time filters in here. So yeah, it started at 7. So we didn't want, I personally just don't like data in there beforehand. So I clear everything out until about 10 seconds before a race starts. So my start had time filters from 10 seconds before 7 until 8 o'clock because I knew we were going to be done. Swim, finish, run, start is probably very, very similar. So we're going to consider splits after 7:03. So I knew we were going to start at 7 o'clock. There's no way anybody's going to finish this swim before 7:03, and our gap factor is 15 minutes. So there's 2 occurrences in 15 minutes. And again, we've got filters from 7:03 until 10:30. So this is a super sprint. So we were expecting everybody to go quite quickly. Now, this is going to be very similar. 7:04 and 15 minutes. And this is 7:04 and 10:30. And then our finish line is we're not expecting anybody until 30 minutes afterwards. One occurrence, and we just filter everybody out from 7:30 until 11. That way, again, we don't have any used reads before then. And you can see the scored reads within here. So scored events, we had 2. Ours was swim start to run finish. We had our default event distance. This is pulled in from RunSignup. This super sprint was the name, and it was only using the reg event of super sprint here. And I didn't put in an actual start time because we were doing chip time. I did not pull in a YouTube video, so I excluded this. So that's why that's set up. Same thing for the relay, except for the relay has the super sprint relay, and we have team scoring set up. Let's see if I can. Corrals, we did not use corrals because it's a chip start. Segments, just like you saw before, we did it in the swim was everything was set to miles, so we did a conversion factor for how long the swim was in miles, so that we could get everything in miles for pacing, etc. So again, this is exactly what we talked about. The segment distance and swim start 1 to run finish was total. So swim was swim start 1 to swim finish 1. I don't think I need to go through all of this. You guys get the picture. And then the relay was exactly the same. So when we go into age groups, we can see very quickly that our age groups are set up for 3 winners. The event wanted 14 and under, and then on up to 80 plus. And then for set top finishers, we had our overall, and this is a very simple event setup. They only wanted 1 overall winner. And then for Clydesdale, they did Clydesdale, all Clydesdales here. Now again, we're not scoring top finishers by gun time. Normally you're doing that in a running event. You're not using that feature there. But if we go into our participant filters, you'll see select your division equals Clydesdale, gender equals male. Athena, and female. Now granted, a male can't register for Athena and vice versa. So I mean, it's a little redundant, but I like redundancy. And then our novice category is we have males and females. And so they selected their division equals novice, and we didn't have an additional filter. And so that's how our banding worked. For our relay, we did not have age groups set up, but we did have a team type. And so we just did overalls for the relay. And so for our reports, so we did an overall report. So our overall report, just that with all of our splits. And then this is what was pushed up for publishing. And then our age group results, let's see if so this one did have age group by gender, but normally we do not have that. So in most scenarios, we're taking out splits and we're taking out pace here. And then we're saving this. And I would say that this, like I said, I normally call this awards. So we'll just go ahead and change it so it's ready for next year when I renew it. So that's the awards report. A relay report is quite literally that. Looks exactly the same, just by our team members. And so we can copy this and call the relay report. We can do that as an awards report as well. And then I'm not going to click on the USAT report only because it has some personal information in there, but I will go in and edit it so you can see what it is. So I've got membership number, last name, first name, gender, date of birth, email, street address, city, state, postal code, division, and chip time in there. The reason why I'm not showing it to you, because it's got real people's email, street address, city, you know, that kind of thing. But this is what we produce. This USAT report is what we produce to send to USAT. So it's a really helpful tool. Now, when you renew, it's going to, you're going to have to remap some of these things because the sanctioning ID for most events changes and some of the questions change, some of the divisions change. So you'll just need to kind of, I have kind of a working outline of what I want this to look like, and I just recreate the USAT report for each go because there's no easy way to map to next year's event because the questions could be different. And so the mapping kind of breaks a little bit, and it's just not automated. Like you can't automate it because those questions can change. So yeah, when we look at this, we see swim start, occurrence, we have 126 in occurrence 1. For this one, we see 126 for 1 and 2, 126, and guess what? Somebody dropped on the run, so we only have 105. And look at that. We have 1 drop, so it all makes sense. 125 finished and 1 dropped. And for those of you that don't know, you can go in here, you can actually click on things that show people. So we had 2 D and Qs. I think they might have gone the wrong course, but yeah, I don't really remember why we had some D and Qs in there. And you also end up with a lot more ignored reads on here. And so when you go into here, you'll get a lot more like within the gap factor. So somebody went in and out of TA and we caught it. Current's not defined. Somebody hit something they weren't supposed to. And then filtered by time, better read selected. So out of those 1,802, we only used like, 750 of those reads. And all of them show what device and your times, et cetera, in there. And for those of you that aren't used to making a BibChip file, the BibChip file is dropped into participants, actions, set BibChip auto assignment. And so you'll choose your file and you can set spreadsheet settings if you need to, if you don't have a header record or it's something other than comma delimited. But this is what it'll end up looking like underneath down here. So this is the bib to chip assignment. And I think that covers most of a try setup. And then don't forget, this is, if you're not using this backup, oh my goodness, it's nice. So definitely make sure you're backing your events up to the cloud, and then you can pull it down on another computer, work on it remotely. So all of the timers on my team, they back everything up to the cloud, and that way, if there's Monday through Friday work, our internal team can load the event on their computer. And so if you have weekend warrior timers that can't answer a Monday noon email really quickly, you can download it. You can pull it down from the server. So I think that covers everything. Are there any other questions out there?
Nope, nothing that needs to be brought up. So if there's anything else, feel free to drop it in.
I always take no questions means that I've explained it so incredibly well that you're all semi-pro now at doing this. And if you do have additional questions and don't want to speak up here, feel free to click on my Calendly link and set up a time to review stuff. Also, I always suggest, especially if you're new at it, to give it a crack setting it up on your own. And then this Get Help button, typing in your information, and you can ask the support team to do a quick cursory review to see if your settings look correct. But if you have more complex issues, or you're just getting started and need some help getting off the ground, feel free to reach out. And my email is crispcrisp@runsignup.com. Anything popped up in the last 30 seconds?
Duncan's asking, is there any difference for a 2- and 3-person relay event in terms of setup? No, there's not. Basically, when you have a relay team, we, instead of just saying there's this one person, if I get a read for this one person, it goes to that one person. What happens is any reads that are associated with any members of a team go to the team. So it could be 2 people on that team. It could be 5 people on that team. It doesn't matter. It just basically considers any reads from any of the members as if they were a read for the team entity itself. So you don't have to do anything else for a 2-person versus a 3-person.
Yep. And it works very, very well. Just keep in mind that you're going to want to use group bib numbers with the team if you're setting things up in RunSignup. Individual bib numbers are not the way to go. So cool, excellent. Well, I appreciate everybody's time and hope everyone is having a great spring and looking forward to getting some triathlons underway. So I hope everybody takes care and we will talk with you soon. Bye.